Yes, so this is something I have been looking forward to talking about since we first reported on it last year. But yeah, so Yoshitoki Oima's To Your Eternity has been simul-publishing through Comixology. You can buy a new chapter every Tuesday for about 99 cents, and
Basically $1.
basically $1, yes. So I guess at the time of this recording, and I guess at the time, when we release this episode, about 14 chapters will be out, I think.
Mm-hmm. So, To Your Eternity. Wow, what a series. Like, we talked about the first chapter when it came out.
I want to, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I do want to interrupt and say that I mentioned, because there was a little confusion when we talked about it with Maxie about how long the first chapter is actually supposed to be, because the preview on Kodansha was about 68, 69 pages. And, I had mentioned, oh, well, the ending for the first chapter seemed like it was a weird stopping place to end it. And I just assumed because of the length, oh yeah, this is just the full chapter. But when I actually bought the first chapter through Comixology just to make sure that what I had read was the full chapter, the actual full chapter is about, close to 80 pages.
Yeah, it's like, they should have ran that entire full chapter,
Yeah, I don't know what the deal with that was.
I mean, the page they chose to stop is so weird. They should have just done the whole way.
Yeah. But yeah, reading the actual full first chapter, the full first chapter is really good. And it actually has a better ending than I thought it originally had, honestly. Cause it really does set up, what this entire series is going to be about.
Well, more than that, it's just an amazing, short story and self-contained story about this kid, this nameless boy who has been left alone in this, desolate winter landscape. And his only companion is the wolf, and who is named Joan, and who has since died he doesn't know this, but he since died, and then the mysterious creature has taken its form and now is just hanging around him. And so, basically, he decides, he wants to go out and, find, he wants to go out and, find paradise, this place where there's bountiful fish and fruits, and, where he thinks everyone is, and there's a bunch of people. But, as he goes off, he slowly comes to realize that everyone who had left the village has probably died at this point. They could never find it and reach it. And, he gets hurt and while trying to go, and he keeps trying to be optimistic. The whole thing in the chapter is, he's keeping his optimism up. He's trying to look at the bright side of everything, even things that are, even when things go wrong. And so when he finds kind of the grave sites of all the people who have kind of just perished as they were traveling, he tries to put a spell on it, and oh, this is great, there were people here. That means if we keep going forward, we'll definitely reach the mountain. But then he just breaks down and he goes from saying, we can do it, to going to, ooh, can we do it? Which is amazing turnaround of wordplay there. And, eventually, he does decide, I'll go home. No, it's not because you told me to, it's because I want to. And then later, he's like, we'll try again. And he's just talking to himself in the entire chapter, he does it, he knows the wolf isn't really communicating with him, or isn't really responding to him. And he's just talking to himself and trying to make himself, feel better because he's so lonely and alone. And so, it ultimately, he gets so sick and he passes away. But, his spirit, kind of lives on through the wolf, who takes his form and takes on the form of the boy and starts traveling as the boy.
Yeah, we should probably mention that the wolf originally had taken on a few more forms, because originally
it was a rock, then it became moss, and then it became the wolf.
I thought he started off as a ball of light, just kind of coming down.
But yeah, he was originally the ball, then he became the rock, then he became moss, then he became the wolf, and then he took the form of the boy at the end of the first chapter.
Yeah, can I just say for the rest of this, a lot of the because sometimes we'll get some narration boxes kind of explaining about the wolf and what exactly this kind of I'm going to say shapeshifter, walking around kind of explaining what sort of its purpose is and what it's trying to look for. Like, the way a lot of that's worded makes it feel like this is some kind of, like, weird scientific experiment kind of thing. It's really interesting. I want to... It's
narrated from the perspective of the creator of the creature, who is just, like, this godly sort of, like, experimental figure. And we in chapter 13, we meet the person, and, like, he mentions, like, the true intentions of creating the creature was to preserve humanity.
Oh, okay.
Basically.
That's interesting.
So it's like, there's some more intrigue behind, like, why the creature, who henceforth I'm gonna just call him Emo because that's what he's eventually nicknamed by the little girl March, who is, like, the first really major arc in the series is about this little girl and the connection, like, she forms with Emo. So
Emo being short for immortal.
It's interesting. It's weird because she first calls him Emo, but then in subsequent chapters she calls him Emi, and then in recent chapters it's gone back to Emo again. So
I think that's just a thing where maybe, like, it's just I think it's just maybe just sort of interchangeable. I don't know if that's, like, just a consistency thing. Maybe I don't know for sure, but yeah, basically the first about 11 chapters make up the first arc, and I really gotta say, I really liked what I read. I thought it was all pretty good. I literally have no problems with it.
So endearing, and, like, like, the world that Oima has created here is, like, this really interesting, like, fantasy kind of. It's not really fantasy, but it's pretty grounded-ish. It's just it has some fantastical elements, but. The story of the little girl March, who was chosen to be a ritual sacrifice by her village, and, like, which is really a big part of this larger, like, political effort of, like, this one tribe trying to invade and take over this other tribe.
But just masked in religion.
It's masked in religion, but it's like this political, like, this underhanded political effort. Like, they're trying to meddle into the affairs of this other tribe so that they can gain more power over them and eventually take them over. And so March is a little girl. She's instantly, like, endearing, because she's just this normal, cute little girl who, is just, she just wants to, like, grow up and, like, be a parent like her parents, and, like, she wants to see herself grow into adulthood, but, like, she's chosen for sacrifice. It's like, no, why should I have to die? I don't want to die. I want to grow up. And, like, her father just has to tell her, be an adult. Which is, like, a heartbreaking scene. It's like, cause, the parents don't want her to die either, but, like, in the situation they have no choice, and it's just devastating. And so, like, the girl sort of has to go along with it, because if she doesn't, like, either her best friend is gonna, like, get killed, or, like, her little sister, who is just a baby, is gonna get killed. So she has to, like, she has to go along with it. She can't really run away from the situation, because otherwise other people she cares about are going to get killed in her place. And so eventually she, meets him. Eventually, like, after, attempt by, like, her kind of older sister figure, not really her sister, but just kind of, like, this person, like, who befriended her, and who she befriended, like, who was kind of this loner before, and, like, became really close with Patrona, who is, like, this teenage girl who is, like, who isn't, like, great at archery, but, she's practicing it. So, she tries to help March escape by, like, shooting an arrow to distract Hayasa, who is, like, the leader of the Yanome tribe, who was in charge, and was put in charge of the carrying out the sacrifice. And so when March escapes, that's when she, like, encounters Emo and learns that he's an immortal, and then they sort of befriend and, like, she sort of befriends him. And so later on, when March, is almost attacked by the bear, like, they consider it a bear god, only, but it's really just a bear. So when the bear is about to attack March and Perona, like, Emo comes to their rescue and defeats the bear and, like, mortally wounds it. And so when Hayasa learns of Emo learns of the existence of Emo and like that it's immortal, she decides to take all of them back to their village so that they can experiment on Emo, and then they also imprison March and Perona and Oniguma to cover up the fact that there isn't actually a bear god, and like the bear had been killed, and also that they didn't carry out the sacrifice, so that they can keep like the ploy up, so that they can still like take over the Niana tribe later. And so like during the escape attempt that happens like there, like very tragic things happen, and like it's very very interesting like where the arc kind of leaves off, because like I'm hoping like these characters, the characters that have survived, like are going to play a part later on in the story, because Hayaza's a really intriguing villain, and like it was very satisfying to see when, Emo later transforms into the bear to protect, everyone during the escape, and like he wrecks her, and like you see like she has been like fucked up, like she has like cracks, her face is all horribly scarred.
That took me aback. I had to really look and make like I didn't even know that was Hayase at first, because yeah, her face just gets so like torn to the point where like if you're just looking like really quickly, she's a bit unrecognizable.
Yeah, but she's a really cool villain, because like she's this duplicitous schemer who like sort of knows how to manipulate people to her advantage. And you think like at first that she is like on their side and like she's she's legitimately going to help them, but like then she reveals her true colors, and she reveals herself to be like, she is this like totally selfish, like and power hungry villain. But like she's not portrayed like over the top and like cartoonishly evil. Like she seems like this a little more believable. She seems like it kind of makes sense why she does things the way she does it. And like she's also in some respects just doing her job too, which is like her mission is to like make sure the takeover of this tribe and like the acquisition of their lab and integration into the Yanome clan's territories happens. So she's just doing her job, and like also experimenting with the weaponistic potential of Emo as an immortal is also part of that. So she's a really interesting character, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens to the Niana village and Perona after this, because at the end of the arc, Perona gets a chance to like shoot the killing blow at Hayaza, but she misses, and that has huge consequences, because now Hayaza knows that she's alive, and she's probably going to go to the village, and there's probably going to be like a huge battle there now, and like who knows who's going to survive. But I'm hoping like she survives, because she's a great character. But I want both of those characters to appear again.
I want to know how she got her face back. That's what I'm the most interested in.
Yeah, because when you first like see like her face like after Emo like wrecks her as the bear, like her skin has totally peeled off her face. Like
it's really grotesque. I wasn't really expecting that.
Yeah, it's just the bare flesh on her face. Ugh. And like when we see her again, like it seems like it's just been stitched up together like patchwork. Like she has this patches of her skin have just been assembled back together. And like it's like I'm very much looking forward to when she appears again. We get to see that design up close again, because wow, it's pretty crazy stuff. But
I'm kind of not looking forward to looking at that up close, because I'm a bit squeamish, and that's gonna make me cringe all over. But like, yeah, that I was not expecting this series to be so.
It is brutal, and it is unforgiving. Like, I don't want to spoil the people who die. I mean, I guess we spoiled the boy already, but that's the first chapter.
Yeah, that's the first chapter.
My god, the series doesn't look like the type of series that's going to pull back any punches. I'll say that much.
I don't want to give too much about it away, but I will say I was not expecting that character to pass. Like,
Yeah.
I thought it was gonna be one of those things where like, oh, like, you know, they're just dreaming and they're gonna wake up or whatever. But like, as soon as it was made apparent to me that, oh yeah, they're dead, I was like, oh, like, I liked that character. Why'd you have to kill him off?
Yeah. The implication is that Emo, when he takes on the form of another person, he also inherits a little bit of their spirit. So in a sense, people still live on through Emo, not consciously, but like their desires and kind of like the essence of who they were. So, and that can be, you can see that in how Emo takes up the mannerisms and of the people and creatures that it transforms into. So when it transforms into, the boy, it reflects some of his mannerisms a little bit, and you can see that. And so it's very interesting progression. And the wolf, the first arc isn't so much about the wolf's character development, but in the most recent chapters, Emo has kind of gotten some self-awareness that, these entities that he can transform into, they are a part of him and they are part of his identity and they are important to him. And so when one of those is taken away, like he feels this sense of loss and fear, and that drives him to get it back. And that's really interesting to see, like the development of this just not generally like self-aware creature so far, but a creature that is growing to being more self-aware and like growing to have more of a sense of self and of its own desires and wants. And so its development is super interesting as well.
Yeah, I see. That's interesting. The fact that Emo can take on bits and pieces of I guess the life forms that he takes on. I really hope that maybe that'll end up being kind of a metaphor for kind of relationships and just how essential they are to your growth as a person. I could see that being something that Oima maybe goes for.
Yeah, I think there is some exploration of that in the series. The relationship between the boy and his wolf was very important. The relationship between March and Perona was very important. Like, the relationships between these characters is what, like, kind of grounds them. It kind of gives them the strength to move forward. March and Perona especially is really easy to get into and really easy to love their relationship because we see, like, Perona is, like, this figure of support for March, like, to console her, to tell her everything is going to be okay. And March is the person that gives Perona hope and, like, the inspiration, like, things will be okay. Like, she's the one who gives, so they both give each other, like, equal amounts of optimism and the strength to move forward. And so that relationship was really easy to get into, and it's the emotional crux of, like, their arc.
Hell, I mean, like, I think I might have missed it earlier on when I was reading, like, I think I missed the part where the story explains that, like, Perona and March aren't related by blood, because, like, I was surprised, like, a few chapters later when Perona starts remembering her sister and when basically she passed away, and it was at that point I realized, oh, wait, Perona and March aren't sisters. Like, if you didn't tell me that, I would have just believed, oh, they're just sisters. Like, they really feel like they have, like, a real familial relationship. It feels real.
Yeah, they feel like family, even though they aren't actually related. And, yeah, Perona, when we see the flashback about how Perona and March met, and, like, how, like, March helped Perona to, come out of her shell and, like, enjoy her life again after her sister died and she was ostracized by the village. Because what had happened was that her sister had brought Perona out into the woods to hide her because she was the one who was going to be sacrificed. And then so her sister went back to the village and got sacrificed in her stead. And so Perona was completely unaware of this until, like, people came out looking for her later and they said, oh, you ran away? You're a disgrace to the village. And, like, she's devastated, like, because her sister is dead. And, like, now, and that, like, clearly made her, like, isolated her and made her become kind of a loner for a long time until, like, March started opening up to her. And, like, they formed this deep connection. And that driving force and like why she's trying so desperately to save March's life is like makes it so powerful, and also makes her just such a compelling character, especially after things that happen and like where things leave off at the end of that arc is just.
And it is worth noting that during that flashback, Oima brings back her something that she used in A Silent Voice, the method of obscuring people's faces. Executed a bit differently here because
it's not really the same thing.
It's not the same thing, but it's
in A Silent Voice it was because Shoya felt alien to the people around him, and the people around him didn't even like notice him, so he felt isolated, and so the X's over their faces like sort of represented that isolation and that like inability to like. It's the inability to relate to the people around him, or like or even see them as other people. In that flashback, it was kind of more of a traditional manga kind of technique that has been I've seen in a few other series, where like from the perspective of like a younger character, like a mature authority figure, like their faces are obscured a bit. And so, like, you can't, like, the characters couldn't read their emotions at the time and really understand what was going on with them.
I'm talking about the moment in particular where, Perona's sister's face is scratched out.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Like,
it's thematically, it's not the same thing, but I appreciated seeing that touch in another one of her series again. Because I think she uses that technique very well.
Oh, yeah.
Is what I was trying to say, but, yeah. I think my all-time favorite moment from the series so far is that moment where March is just so... Because, she's a child, so obviously, she's very forward and blunt about what she wants and how she feels. And I appreciated how, she kind of stood up to Hayase when it came time to discuss, who was going to be sacrificed for the ritual, and how she was like, well, I don't want to die. And she's just like, well, if I die, I'm not going to grow up. But like, why would I want to do that? Like, I appreciate that perspective so much. And it was really cutting the way because that's March's whole thing is she wants to be able to grow up and she wants to become an adult. And so the moment where her father tells March to just to act like an adult, to basically get her to go along with the ritual, was really cutting. Like,
yeah,
it was so painful to see March's desire used against her, and in such a different, like, in kind of the opposite way of like the kind of adult she wants to be, but also at the same time, like, I think that also, like, that kind of perspective also makes sense because, when you become an adult, there are things that you just kind of have to deal with, and you can't really do much to really fight against. So I think that perspective also, like, is sort of relatable and also kind of makes sense. So I think there are a lot of layers to that scene in which I really appreciated. But like I said, yeah, the way her father uses her desire against her to go along with what the village wants, I thought was really cutting. Like, it really, like, struck a chord with me emotionally.
Oh yeah, that's such a powerful moment. There are a lot of great, like, powerful emotional moments, but I mean, I guess honestly, my favorite moment is just the moment though when, like, Emo turns into the bear and, like, totally wrecks Hayase.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
That's just such a satisfying moment.
It's also cool. It's like, also cool because we get to see Emo, like, mid transformation. So, like, there are pages and panels of, like, him transforming into the bear. So he's like, it's really interesting to just see him mid transformation. I thought those were some really cool pages.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I guess the core theme of the series is the relationships part, and, like, also I guess also a little bit about, like, how human society is formed by the relationships, customs, traditions, and beliefs that they share.
Adapting to your environment.
Adapting to your environment. That's probably the obvious one because of how emo shapeshifts. So that's a core theme, and I'm really excited to see how Oima continues to explore that going forward, especially with the revelations and the most recent chapters. But it's also kind of interesting that so far the major characters in the series, outside of emo, who is like by default genderless, has been female. Because the major characters in the first arc are all female characters. So that was also pretty interesting to see too, because it's not a big deal as native. It's not like noted, but it's just like kind of interesting to see this kind of fantasy story just explored with all female characters.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. There really aren't any like named male characters in that first arc. At least not that I can remember.
Yeah, I don't think there is a major main character in the first arc. And, like, even now, Emo's traveling companion is the old woman, Pioran. So, like, there's a strong female presence in the series. Like, that's just generally I wouldn't have expected. It's not like it's in a shonen series, and also, you know, generally in a fantasy series, you just don't see that a lot either. So that's really cool.
Yeah, this is something that does run in a shonen magazine, so I think it runs in the same magazine that Fairy Tail runs.
Yeah. Weekly Shonen magazine, which is where Silent Voice also ran.
That's really interesting to think how a Silent Voice ran in a shonen magazine. Because I wouldn't have really classified it as shonen, but that is really cool. I didn't think about that aspect of it either. But yeah, that is kind of refreshing. I do like that. But I don't think there was anything else I wanted to say, unless you had more you wanted to talk about.
I think we touched upon, like, the characters, the team, and the story, like, very well, and I don't want to give too much away because I want people to actually read the series because it is amazing. It is by far, I guess technically it came out at the end of last year, but, like, I can easily see this, like, at the end of year being my favorite manga of the year because it has just had an incredible run so far where, like, the entire story is just so very tight and cohesive and so, like, emotionally charged and, like, oh my god, like, it is an incredible level of craftsmanship shown here. Like, even compared to a Silent Voice, this is an amazing start. Like, like in terms of a start, it might even be even more engaging than a Silent Voice, even if the center team isn't quite as strong so far, as not explored as strongly so far. It's just a super engaging series that I'm so excited about, and it's been mentioned, I think, by people that I think I saw Bomber on Twitter like mention that it like is ranking at the back of the magazine. Well, Shonen Magazine has weird ranking system anyway, so I'm not too worried about it right now.
Yeah, but like from what I understand, unlike Jump, Weekly Shonen Magazine doesn't cancel stuff at 13 chapters. So
yeah, and also it has weird ranking system in general. Like they kind of are more random. Like they're
not as strict as Jump.
Like you're not going to see like super popular stuff like Fairy Tail or Sins back there, but even like even like fairly popular stuff like Yamada or Fuka could be at the back sometimes, even though, you know, they aren't unpopular in the slightest. So, you know, it's not great. It's not like total, like indicative, like, oh, the series isn't doing well. So but either way, I'm just hoping like this series lasts as long as it's possible for Oima to explore everything she wants to explore thoroughly and like tell like an amazing like story, because like it doesn't need to be a long story, but like, oh my, I want as much of this as possible because it is just so good. To Your Eternity, best manga you're not reading, but you should. Pay $1 per chapter, get a subscription on Comixology. Well worth it. Don't want to hear any complaining. It's amazing.
Yeah, like, it's good. Like, I don't have anything bad to say about it at all. Like, I thoroughly enjoy it, and it is totally worth the $1 per chapter on Comixology. So yeah, again, you know, if you want to read this, it's on Comixology, simul-publishing every Tuesday from what it looks like. Again, for exactly 99 cents, you can keep up with it every week. It's pretty cheap. I think it's a pretty worthwhile investment, honestly.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of quality for that price. Really.
There hasn't been I mean, obviously there hasn't been a bad chapter. I can't say that, but there hasn't been a chapter of To Your Eternity so far that I felt was lacking, or that I felt I paid 99 cents for this. Every chapter has been very high quality, and I don't say that lightly. So, yeah, just go read it. What are you doing? Stop listening to our podcast and go read To Your Eternity.
Yeah.
I think that's the best compliment we can give it.
Definitely. So happy with how this series is turning out.
Yeah, it's been really good so far. Honestly, I could see this being my favorite manga of the year. But I think that's about it for all the stuff we wanted to talk about.
Basically.
I don't think we have any emails.
No, we don't. But make sure to send those emails to mangamavericks@gmail.com. We love reading them.
Ever since the JoJo Q&A special, we haven't been getting a lot. So,
yeah.
Hey, what do you think about all the news we've been talking about? Do you have any thoughts on the Jump starts that have been premiering in Jump? What do you think of We Never Learn and U19? If you start reading To Your Eternity, let us know what you think of it. Do you think it's just as good as we think it is, or for some reason do you think it's bad? I mean, if you do, I guess you can email us about it. We'll reluctantly read it. But I mean, it's impossible because I don't see why anyone could hate this. Just send us an email, like Sid said, at mangamavericks@gmail.com. We will definitely read it on the show.